Alright guys, you're welcome to our next Python uh, series. Then, uh, Today we shall be looking at how you can store data in Python. Essentially, you want to store um, user data so that you can keep that data for next use, for future use. When the same user visits your visit your runs your program again, you want to make sure that you can easily do some personalization uh, to your user so that you can use the supplied information about the user to be able to personalize your website or personalize your program for you for better user experience. So I will also this information is also this technique is also applicable to files, creating files and opening files in Python. But we shall be looking at storing the information in a format called JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So we have the JSON module, which has these two important methods, and the dump for you to be able to store and the load for you to be able to retrieve. So let's see an example here. Here we want to dump this list of numbers into a file called numbers.json. So just like you also do in Python files, you open the file name, which is the name of the file you want to create. In this case is numbers.json, and you open it in a write mode, and you alias it with this F. Then you can use the dump to dump the list inside the file. So this does that, and then this is the way it will appear on our file, inside our file numbers.json. If you want to read it back, don't forget to import the JSON module. This time around you open the same file name, but you don't supply the second argument. Since you just want to open it in a read mode, you return the file object. Then you can just use the json.load, which will load the list, this same list that we have stored inside the numbers.json. So, but most time you use this for user generated data, where you actually get the information from the user. So here you are inputting, getting an input from the user, and you are storing that input inside the variable username, and you are creating a file called username.json, where you dump the username that you retrieve from the user, and you can just print a message to the user just to personalize the experience. Alright, if you want to retrieve it back, you can just use the open, looking at the file name that you have stored, and you load. Then you can retrieve the username from the file and print it out. Now, because this is prone to error, and you remember the last time we learned about exceptions, so you know that in this block of code you can have error. Let's say, for instance, the file name does not exist, so this will return an error, and the error will be file not found. So you want to undo that error in except. And how do you undo it? If this username has not been found before, what you want to do is want to request for the username. So what's your name? You store it inside username, and you create using the username. You using the this file name called username.json. You create the file, and you can dump the whatever username you retrieved into that particular file to create that file. If this does not throw an error, then you can just print the username to the user. Okay, now we want to look at all this together, because in order to write a clean code that is easy to test and is extensible, there's a technique in software engineering analysis that a function should be responsible for just one specific task. So in order to achieve that, you want to put all this program in different functions so that they can be responsible for one simple task. So you want to have a function called greetUser, and all that function will be doing is just to take the username and welcome the user. And that's all that function is going to be doing. So you don't want to put all the information, all the tags inside a particular function. You want each function to be able to, like here now you have everything inside one function. So you want to break this function greetUser into smaller functions and make them responsible for a specific task. So you here get stored username. You have broken it into 3 functions. One is get stored username. The next one is get new username. The third one is greetUser. So by breaking the functions, that's one function, into these 3 functions, you are able to make sure that each function is responsible for only one specific task. Okay, so let's see what's happening in code so that we can understand it better. So this is what is happening. We have the 3 functions. We have the get stored username, you have the get new username, and you have the greetUser. Each of these functions is responsible for one particular task. It's responsible for one particular task. So the get stored username looks into a file on this file system on our drive and returns the username. The get new username prompts the user for a username and stores it inside username.json, while the greetUser does the logic of first of all trying to retrieve the username from the file. If that does not work, then it calls the function to get new username, and it does the appropriate welcome. It's just a clean way of writing the code to make sure that things are in order and each function is responsible for one specific task, and that you can easily extend your code. And by the time we get to how to test our code, you will see how important it is for each function to be responsible for a specific task. So although it takes more to be able to write more functions, but the pain of writing more functions and thinking about to break the code and where to move things to worth it later on as the project becomes more and more complex. So essentially, it's a good practice in programming to make sure that a function is responsible for one specific task and nothing else. Okay, so let's say that. So now we have this function called guest.username. So it has its username. It tries to access the username. If there's an error, it returns a none. And it's also a good practice to ensure that your function returns what you expect, and if it does not return that, then you should return a none. That will help you to be able to test that your function is working appropriately. So it has a try, except, and else. So in the try, you try to open the file name user name.json to check whether you already have that user. If that is true, you return that username. If that is not true, you return none. In the get new username, you ask the user to supply their name. You create a file where you are going to dump the name that the user supplies, and then you return that username. Here we don't need to put in any try except. I want to put a try except in case the user does not put any name. We assume that this will stay on until the user actually supplies something. And so whatever the user supplied will be returned. And so let me run this. So we'll have an indent there. So this should be on the same line as that. So so this is the logic. So what does this do? It first of all tries to get the stored username, put it in username. If this returns the appropriate username, which is calling this function, then it print the username out. If it does not, then it calls for the method that prompt the user for a new username, and it does the appropriate thing. Just very clean and easy to understand. And so you put the username there, and they say, okay, we remember you when you come back. Okay, if you put it again, once you say, since it already has the file name, so it's able to remember. And if you want to see the file system, you will see that this is created. This is username.json. So since every time I say greet user, the first time it looks into this place and say, okay, get stored username is not there, then it's going to prompt for get new username, which prompts me to be able to supply an input username. But since I already have a created username.json, every time I run the program, it automatically retrieves the username. Let's say I delete the file and I say create username. Since it doesn't exist anymore, by the time I say it asks me for the username. And by the time I supply that, if you run the program again, then it's able to remember, because here I now have the username. Alright, that's just something for our knowledge sake. Thank you for listening, and do give us a like if you benefited from this, and see you in the next one. Thank you.